Cancer. Hi, it's Erin Scott here. Welcome to your September 2019 Alchemy Scope. Let's dive into your growth processes this month. We're going to look at 3 different modalities. One is this art channeling that we're looking at now. This is a speeded up video format. And we're going to be looking at a divinatory message that came through for you. And we're going to be looking at your astrology. They're all linked. They're all connected. It's all part of your natural evolutionary growth process this month. Now, you received an interesting drawing, okay? And I haven't fully articulated the meaning. I haven't fully interpreted it yet. So we're going to be doing essentially a live interpretation here on this audio recording. So as you can see here, there's this orange swirl with 2 points at the end of it. And then there was this hook in black ink that emerged with 2 hook ends to it, okay? The next thing that's emerging is a fish. Now, there was another sign that also got a fish, and I can't remember which one it was. I think it was Scorpio, okay? So if you're a Cancer ascendant sun who also has Scorpio encodings within your blueprint, then you want to take a look at Scorpio as well, okay? So yeah, so we have this fish, and then now this yellow form started emerging for you, okay? And it became clear, for me it was clear what it was, okay? Now, this is going to look different than what a lot of you are going to remember it looking like, but if you remember Harry Potter, the sorting hat, that sorting hat was pointed and folded and essentially black, and this one is yellow. And it's not quite as pointy at the top. It has almost more of a boxy tip to it. And this one is bright yellow, and it has these stars, you know, these pentagrams on it. So it's different, but the narrative I was getting, the image I was getting, the storyline I was getting as this was coming through, this yellow version, was the sorting hat from Harry Potter. So we're going to talk about that. Let's first look at what's coming through, and then we're going to analyze it. Now you can see underneath there's an orb with this teal/turquoise face. This is ultimately becoming a head. And what's emerging now from that original orange swirl, Cancer, this is now starting to become hair, red hair. Long red hair that is blowing back in the wind, and it's becoming, or it's arcing into these 2 tips, these 2 hooks at the back of the hair, okay? So it's indicating there's the witch, kind of whimsical witch archetype coming through here. The yellow hat, the pentagrams, the long red hair. But certainly what we're looking at here too, and also the green face, by the way. I didn't even think about that till now. This is a turquoise face. It's not the green face of the witch of, you know, Wizard of Oz. But this is indicating kind of a witch narrative, okay? And you can see that there's these arrows that I circled underneath Cancer, and the eyes are pointing outward in arrow formations. Okay, and let's see if there's anything else that's going to come through here. There's this green bubble coming out from this head. And you can see that there's green and there's growth. So there's an imagining. It's almost like a text bubble, you know, like in a cartoon. That's what the image here was for me. So there's something here about growth. There's an envisioning of growth, an envisioning even of gardens. For some of you, this is really quite literal, where there was there's an indication this month that you are imagining growing things. And it could be physical gardens, okay? Now, the last thing I pointed out here is I wrote down right and I wrote down left. So underneath Cancer, so let's now do the interpretation, okay? So when I initially wrote out Cancer, there was a squiggle after it, okay? I underlined it, and the underline became an arrow. The arrow is pointing right. Down at the bottom, the witch is looking left. The fish is going left. The hair is blowing right. So there's this directionality that is going two different directions. Okay? Now, first, let's start with Cancer with the squiggle, because ultimately what happened was after I wrote it out, what I see, not everybody is going to see this, but what I saw, and what is certainly a message that's coming to me as an indication of the messages coming through this reading for you, is run. So what I see, Cancer, is Cancer, run. And then in addition to that, there's the arrow moving right. Now, right is a little bit complex, because if we're talking about the right side of the body, it's alluding to the left brain, which is more analytic. It's more parts oriented. It's more detail oriented. It's the logistical and the details and the parts and math and numbers. Okay? But what I get here with this moving right is moving into the right brain, moving into the more holistically seeing, the more holistically oriented, the more emotionally interpretive, the more storytelling oriented mind, Cancer. So Cancer, run right. Cancer, run right brain, okay? So that's what I'm getting here, that there is some indication that in September you're going to want to, well, that there's a natural orientation for Cancer to move into more intuitive ways of operating, more connected to your emotional guidance system and your intuitive wisdom set. That is the push, Cancer, for you. Cancer, run right. But if you notice this witch with this sorting hat, which we actually still need to talk about, she's looking left. And left is about physical reality, the matrix, minutia, logistics, the day-to-day reality of the physical being human process, okay? Your day-to-day reality. That's what looking left is for me. So the interesting thing is, this is a witch. She is wearing a hat with stars on it. She has a teal face. A teal face. Teal is kind of a combination. It's kind of turquoise. You know, it's a combination of blue and green. Green is the heart chakra. Blue is the fifth chakra, the communication chakra. So there's kind of this in-between of speaking your heart, right? So the face of Cancer is about speaking the heart. But here she is looking left, Cancer. The witch is looking left. Her hair is blowing back, though. And if you notice, the hair is blowing back toward the original arrow that's pushing her to go right. So I don't know if this makes sense to those of you listening to my voice right now, but what I get here is that there might be a need, okay, just naturally, to pay attention and to discern where you put your focus. Where are you putting your thought? Where are you putting your mind? Where are you putting your attention? Is it on the physical reality that you see? Is it the matrix? Is it the hologram? Is that what you're focusing on? Or are you attending to the call to trust your own intuitive knowing, to trust your own emotional guidance system, okay? That's what I'm talking about here. Now, the hair is long and it's red. It's orange, actually, right? This is an orange pencil, but ultimately what we call people with orange hair is a redhead. So I'm referring to a red-headed person here, not an orange-haired person, right? So this is a red-headed witch. And this red, you know, red is passion, energy, vital life force. Hair is strength. It indicates strength, especially long hair. It indicates the antenna to spirit. The interesting thing for all of you Cancers listening is that her hair, her intuitive antenna to spirit, look where it's blowing back to. It's blowing back to Okay, Cancer, I'm pulling you behind you. I'm pulling you back. You need to look this way. That's what I'm getting here for you. So a lot of you are going to be hyper-focused on looking at physical details of life, especially, I mean, what we're talking about here is a stellium in Virgo, which we're going to talk about in the third component of this reading for you, right? And Virgo is about physical reality, practical matters, logistics, the details. So what I get here is you are being pulled to really trust and tap into your own intuitive wisdom, your own intuitive knowledge, and your own emotional guidance system, to trust it, to love it, to hone it, to fine-tune it, right? The thing with the yellow sorting hat, let's talk about that. I haven't thought about that yet. First of all, it's yellow. First of all, the hat is like a witch's hat, right? So the hat is your identifier. It's on top of your head. It sits on the crown of your chakra system. It sits on the top of your body. So there's an announcement of, I am witch, I am spiritual, I am whimsical, I am magic, I am magical, I am numinous, right? Because again, the image that I kept getting was Harry Potter's sorting hat. So, and the sorting hat would determine what person would go in what house. Cancer, mercy. Let me just think about this for a minute. There's something this month about you being sorted. You're being sorted. Yellow is gold. This yellow hat is like a gold energy. It's yellow energy. It's certainly third chakra, which is your identity. Okay, so we're definitely talking the hat on the head, and the yellow is both implying this is my role, this is my identity, this is my persona that I'm emanating out to the world. This is the role of how others see me, okay? So there's something there about a role that you're presenting, but there's something else. You know, the 3 stars, first of all, the pentagrams 5, 5, 5, and actually, I'm just thinking about that too. So if we're looking at this sorting hat, it has 3 stars on it, you know, and it's pentagrams with 5 points. 5, 5, 5. For any of you connected to and familiar with quote unquote angel numbers, or numbers that really show messages very clearly to us, you know, a million times a day. Those of you familiar know that 555, anytime you get 555, it indicates that there's a lot of change at hand, that you're going through major shifts and changes, emotionally, relationship-wise, work-wise, financial-wise, major change, home, foundations, all that stuff. So 555 is indicated here. The black indicates subconscious or unconscious default narratives, the things that live within you that you're not quite aware of yet. And the pentagram themselves represent spirituality. Certainly there's a pagan spirituality here, a connection to nature with the pentagram. The fact that they're on the sorting hat, it's almost like you're going to, this is what I get, Cancer. I think that maybe in September, you might find that life will show you a karmic repercussion quickly, meaning that you might find that the more you focus on the details of physical reality, the more you're going to feel a repercussion to show you, to tell you, to give you indication that you're looking in the wrong direction. That's what I'm getting with the yellow sorting hat, because the sorting hat is kind of, it's a spiritual, the sorting hat was kind of a magical entity who would make the choice according to the character of the individual, which house is appropriate for you, right? So it's important to understand that this sorting hat for your September is indicating that you're being given the right circumstances, the right situations, according to your character and what you're bringing forward here. Where is your mind focused? If you're focused on the physical minutia of reality and you're needing proof, or you're insistent on looking at what is through a perception lens of it's lacking, or it's not right, or it should be different, or all this other kind of stuff that gets you hooked into suffering, that's not going to serve you this month. Okay? Now, and meanwhile, as this is happening for you, as maybe there's more of an immediacy of a karmic repercussion that says to you, that tells you, I'm focused in the wrong place. Okay? You're also dreaming of new beginnings, new growth, even land. This is what I want to say. I think some of you might really be focused on land, property, gardens, earth, even earth, okay? Gaia, what's happening in Africa, what's happening in the Amazon, what's happening with the boreal forest. You know, all of these areas of the planet that are activated and are needing our assistance. It might be that a lot of you, in fact, what I want to say is that a lot of you might indeed be focused on left. The eyes are pointed left. They're pointing at devastation. They're pointing at, and they're focused on. The arrows are laser focused. It's almost like you're focusing almost solely to the exclusion of right brain. Right brain, okay? See the holistic picture, understand the function, breathe, because in that space of clarity, then you can act in full empowerment toward the benefic action. You can do what you can do. You can't fix the whole. You're not intended to fix the whole, okay? So a lot of you are thinking about land, property, Gaia, earth, gardens, permaculture, all kinds of stuff, okay? But there might be a desire to connect more ultimately to the earth. And a lot of you might be planning a home, something that you want, you're dreaming for yourself, okay? Now, the interesting thing with the two hooks at the end of the hair, which I really still don't quite understand, is that there was also a fishing hook that had two hooks. And it was very specific as I was drawing this, two hooks, two hooks. And you can see that the fish has passed the hook. Do you see that? Underneath the hook, the fish has already passed it. There was no, he's not hooked on the hook. So he's past it, he's moving on, and look where he's looking. He's looking at you, but ultimately he's looking left as well. The fish is black. You know, fish can be any color. This fish is black and gray. And this is indicating that there's some unconscious water. Fish swim in water, right? So there's some aspect of your default orientation, Cancer, that swims in water unconsciously, meaning there's an aspect of you that orients in the emotional internal processes of who you are unconsciously. In other words, there's some emotions that are not fully conscious to you yet. And there's a risk of getting hooked. I wonder if that's what that is, though. There's a risk of getting hooked, but he passed the hook. See, the hook is actually coming down from, the hook is coming down from the right brain. The arrow is circled. The hair hooks are coming out toward right and arrow. So the top of the fishing hook, right, the arrow, the circle, and the hair hooks are all in the same portion of that upper right side of the drawing. The fish passed the hook. There was a temptation of the right brain to hook you maybe into coming up and out of this hyper focus on left, on practicality, on physicality, on the story, on the narrative, on the hologram, on the matrix. Something unconscious is not paying attention. There's an aspect of you, Cancer, sweet, beautiful Cancer, that's not paying attention. You're not paying attention. You didn't get hooked. So that's one way to read this. Like, you skipped the hook, you didn't get hooked. But that's not what I get from this particular image. The fish has an unconsciousness to it. One, because of the color, the other because of kind of the expression ultimately, but the positioning of the fish. It's very laser pointed toward left, where your eyes are also pointed. So there's something here about moving forward by a default emotional way of operating that is unconscious. And even with appropriate circumstances attempting to hook you into looking this other way because there's something of benefit that way, you might not be doing it. Cancer, run. So there's something here about, and maybe for some of you too, Cancer, some of you go very far right brain and then you go very far left brain. So for some of you, that running right and then that hyper-focused left, in other words, that hyper orientation of being really emotional and really sensitive, which is also right brain. It's a sensitivity to the conditions of the whole. Maybe it goes very extreme one way, and then you overcompensate by maybe going the other way and focusing on logistics and practicalities and the home and the this and the that. Almost like a focused need, like I need to do X for this person, for the earth. I need to do this, right? Now, we're going to be looking in a second here, actually. We're almost done. We're going to be looking at the message that came through for you, which is beautiful and it's interesting, okay? Because it's completely aligned with Cancer. But with regards to this reading, there's two directions pulling on you, and it's going to take discernment, and it's going to take an awareness of how you emotionally react. Again, fish, black, gray, moving past the hook, also focusing left, practical matters, physical reality. There's some emotional way of operating where it's too focused on what is the resultant condition of your reality, versus understanding it from a more holistic perspective, which is the right brain, okay? So there might be, unless you're awake and aware of opportunities, the hooks that are coming in to tempt you to start seeing things through another lens, there might be some anxiety even this month with these two directions pulling. Meanwhile, you have this dream of home, of land, of green, of growth, of security. That's another thing. There might be some issues of security coming up here. What I get from this image is that there's some anxiety here. There's anxiety here. So let's go ahead and take a look now at your guidance that came through. I went out in nature last week, had a fantastic session. And for you, beautifully, perfectly, you received Venus, the Venus card. This is a palmistry deck, okay, written by Cindy Solano. Venus, the Venus line, give unconditionally. And it's actually the Venus mound on the palm. You can see it circled on the card. So with regards to the message for you, this is your growth for this month, Cancer. This is the optimal growth for you to focus on, the optimal maturity point, the optimal growth edge, okay? When you give, you also receive. Do not attach strings or expectations when you give. If you do, this is not really giving. True giving should bring you joy. Perform a charitable act and tune into how it makes you feel. Isn't it wonderful to give? It is also possible to give to the earth. Reduce your carbon footprint by recycling and reducing your own personal waste. Meditate on the earth being embraced by beautiful, pure white or violet light to make the world a better place. Now, this is what I'm going to say. For those of you that watched my September astrological video, or my generalized video for September, you will know that every Sunday at 9:11 a.m., wherever you're located in the world, I'm hosting, you could say, a this global meditation. But ultimately, this is on your own time in your own home to tap into Earth. 9/11 every Sunday throughout September. So the fact is that this message fits perfectly with that. And again, going back to the artwork, the image of land, the image of green, the image of earth is definitely calling about this. Now, the interesting thing, the growth for you with this card is about giving unconditionally, fully, totally, completely, authentically, okay? With zero expectation for any return, okay? Now, let's take a look at your astrology. You're going to notice that the glyphs for the different signs are all skewed, but that is the program that I used to create the chart that I needed using astro.com. So just pardon the skewed glyphs, but I needed this in order to pull up my interpretation of your activations, right? So we're looking at the Cancer archetype. This is your natural growth process over the course of this September timeframe. And we're starting with at the Virgo new moon point, which began naturally the energetic signature of this month ahead. We're looking at your chart for that date. And we have throughout the majority of September a stellium of planets in Virgo. And you can see that Virgo in your archetypal chart hits the 3rd house. So Cancer, quite naturally at this time frame, there is an immense amount of energetic focus on Virgo mind and Virgo communications. Okay? Keep in mind, Virgo is all about the details of the parts being healthy so that the whole operates maximally and optimally and efficiently, okay? Ultimately, it's about health and healing. It's about work and logistics and productivity. It's about integrity, efficiency. These are all Virgo quality sets, okay? Now, with all that being said, so there's a lot of focus with that Virgo, but for you, it is in your 3rd house. Again, this is generalized, right? Those of you with very specific blueprints, for example, with the Cancer ascendant, that's a late degree ascendant, there's going to be different activations. And throughout the month, if you're an early degree Cancer ascendant or an early degree Cancer sun, earlier in the month, you're going to feel more of these activations that I'm talking about than later in the month. So it depends on your particular blueprint, but for the generalized archetype, this is what we're looking at. So a lot of detailed planning, strategizing, communications, research. I think a lot of you might be researching things. You're focused on things. Thus, again, in the artwork, the focused eyes, looking left. I think you're planning, you're strategizing on physical reality. What do you need to do first, second, and third? Now, again, for some of you, there might be an over-focus in that direction, okay? Now, you can see that stellium of planets down at that 3rd house in Virgo, there are these oppositions up to your 9th house with Neptune and with Black Moon Lilith in Pisces. So for you, as with all of the signs, there is this opposition between the Virgo stellium and these 2 points in Pisces. For you, it happens to engage your 9th house. 3rd house with the stellium, 9th house with that opposition. So for you, the 9th house is your belief system. It has to do with your paradigm of reality, your constructs, okay? For you, Lilith, Neptune. And this is a Neptune-ruled 9th house, okay? So we're talking Neptune-ruled 9th. Well, it can look like many things, but Neptune is the function of the consciousness field. It is non-physical reality. It's immatter, right? And it represents God, spirit, the consciousness field, source, no boundaries, no physicality. And because of all of that, it can look, it has no boundaries and it is non-identifiable. There's no physicality to it. And because of that, one of the functions of Neptune quite naturally is confusion, delusion, and a lack of clarity with regards to what we believe. What is our truth? Okay. Now, specifically for you, you're contending with these issues of uncertainty about certain belief systems, certain teachings. There might be this whole narrative going on for you this month, a whole process, a whole cycle where there's a bit of self-delusion with regards to the I am not valuable narrative, which is Lilith. I'm not valuable. People don't value me. God doesn't value me. That's a big one here. Why? Because Lilith is in Pisces' 9th house for you. So you could have a belief system activated during this process this month, and especially so with all of those oppositions to the planets in Virgo, where you have this real deep belief that arises occasionally this month that says, God doesn't, I believe in my heart of hearts that God simply doesn't, he's not showing me. I say he, that source is not validating my existence here. So this could be existential depression stuff, by the way, that's coming up for some of you. Okay. Not for all of you, but for some of you. So this is some illusion where your belief goes into fantasy. It's the myth of I am not valuable and I don't matter. It's the myth of it. Your goal, the growth edge for you inherently with this opposition, Cancer, this month, is for you to understand how you inherently are valuable, how you inherently do matter. Now, for some of you, there's going to be an activation to communicate teachings about value for people, spiritual value, value inherent to their existence. You might be wanting to help people understand their own value. That's another activation for some of you who are either already teachers or are emerging to become teachers in one way, shape, or form. Okay. So again, the getting to work with communicating, 3rd house, Virgo, being prompted by the spiritual compassion for people or demographics of people that are not valued in society at large. So that's another thing here that's coming through. There's the internal narrative, but how it's going to be expressed externally could be that you're going to push to help those understand that they are valuable. And you're going to, do what you can to be the compassionate mother, nurturative archetype. Okay. Indeed, the north node of the moon, as you can see, is in your sign, and it's in your 1st house in this archetypal chart. So this is a big deal. You're going to be going through a process over the next year still where the mastery arc for you is everything to do with your valued identification of you as a caretaker, an authentic caretaker. Not conditional. It's not conditioned on anything. But you as an authentic caregiver and nurturative agent in this world. The protector and the caregiver. The one that is empathetic and compassionate. The one that can feel and be sensitive to the emotions of the other. Okay? That's the growth edge for you. It's the mastery arc, but specifically as it relates to your identity. So for you, you're continuing your process through all of this Virgo communications focus, researching, strategizing, researching the logistics and planning things out. Also sharing information, networking, asking. There's curiosity activated here, but there's also getting to work. But as you get to work on maybe helping to teach compassion for the devalued demographics of people out there in the world, you're continuing to push into your mastery of, this is my identity. I am Cancer. I am the caregiver. I am the wise, mature, unconditional caregiver. Okay. Now, let's see what else. Now, the other thing that I'll point out here is the trine that you have from that stellium of planets down in Virgo. There's a trine, all of those blue lines up to Capricorn, where we have Saturn, the South Node, and Pluto. This has been a very intense process. For you, Saturn rules the 7th house. So in the archetypal chart for Cancer, Saturn is ruling the relationship sector, which is already kind of an intense process. And Saturn has been traveling retrograde alongside the South Node's movement in that sector, of course, with Pluto. Very intensified process. So relationships for you have been changing, transmutating. Toxic patterns have been coming up. There's been dogmatism with maybe how you have been with people, dynamics that you've, the way by which you relate to people might have come into a more domineering and dogmatic and rigid sort of way of operating in the last many months in 2019. And the reason being is Saturn South Node. Okay. Now, there is a trine between that Capricorn stellium and the stellium of planets and energies in Virgo, right? That's a big deal because it indicates that the work that you put in, the research and the strategizing that you do to plan your future, etc., your career, etc., is being benefited by and is benefiting the transmutations of the relationships that's at hand for you. And because it's relationships in Capricorn, it indicates that these could be business relationships that are benefically aided by the work that you do this month in September. So again, Virgo is about getting to work, right? So there's much more we can talk about. We'll continue this next month in the October reading for Cancer. I do send you much love for your processes this month. I am having sales over the course of this month of September. They're definitely happening the first week of September, but because I've had some technological slowdowns, I'm probably going to be extending those sales on through the rest of the month. So Cancer, you're welcome to go to my site or the links below and check out the sales. For those interested in becoming a member for weekly streams, you're welcome to join. We'd love to have you. For those of you with any questions, reach out about your natal chart in-depth analysis. It's foundational tool. So for those interested, you can reach me, links are below. Much love, Cancer. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.